Barrage comes down. Gets 3 with that 4! Oh my god, that went very well. They were not expecting that huge from shifting on this Pharah.
To say the One Trick Wonders had an underwhelming season is an understatement, from everyone acknowledging them as the undeniable top novice team to finishing a measly 4th in the regular season and dead last in the playoffs. OTW did not live up to the expectations set. We know how it all ended. We'll have to dive deeper than the surface to answer the burning questions on everyone's mind. What happened?
Before a single player was added to the roster, One Trick Wonders appeared to be establishing a structure to rival that of a professional team. The manager, Orbit, was a player and former captain of the Season 0 iteration of Newt Newt, and had proven himself to be a capable leader for a moderately successful team. Likewise, he surrounded himself with a slew of support staff. To start, Orbit appointed Sinop as the team's captain, a relatively new member of the League 0 community, but at the time extremely active and extremely capable as a flex player, placing in the upper fringe of the novice player pool. Joining the two primary team leaders were 3 coaches: the Strider, who followed Orbit over from the original Newt Newt, Daffy Duck, and Ulfgar. Ulfgar in particular was generating quite a buzz around him and the team for the amount of work he was supposedly putting into scouting. According to Orbit, Ulfgar was dedicating nearly 30 hours a week into pursuing the novice draft pool in the hopes of pinpointing the best and brightest. This early organization and structure is what led to quite a few to believe One Trick to be one of, if not the, top novice contender going into the draft, let alone coming out of it. Not counting protected draft picks like managers, captains, and players of already established teams like Platchat and Rio, OTW managed to gain the first overall draft pick, which they used to pick up the explosive main tank Arrow. While they quickly nabbed a strong frontman, players like Ada, Shifting, Silver Star, and Domination shouldn't be overlooked either. On paper, One Trick Wonders were poised to take the league by storm.
The season started off with emotions running high in their first match against Double Cap. OTW lost the first 2 maps and took a halftime break to cool their heads and come back with a vengeance. The result was the league's first reverse sweep of the season on the first day of matches. What was so surprising with this outcome was not necessarily that One Trick managed to wrestle victory from the jaws of defeat, as much as the fact that they did so while playing a DPS-centric composition. Goats was the obvious method of choice at the time, so the fact that One Trick Wonders looked so comfortable on it was a bit of an ill omen. Interestingly enough, they stood out the most with either a standard 2-2-2 or multi-DPS compositions. It was this mastery over damage-healing heroes combined with the roster's inherent strength, along with the newfound confidence from their Week 1 victory, that led them to a firm dominance during their Week 2 match against Platchat as well. It was Week 3 that OTW would face their toughest opponents in SiR. At this point, only 2 novice teams have remained undefeated, and they were now coming to a head-to-head showdown. Pekka Friends would go on to win this matchup and secure their spot as the #1 seed for the remainder of this season. However, their season review will come in due time. What we're going to focus on is the impact this loss had on the One Trick Wonders. The team was unsure of how to approach the Pekka, and as a result they lost 3-1. They knew their Goats was weaker going into the match, but what they weren't prepared for was the level at which their opponents could play DPS compositions as well. This is the moment when the team unanimously agreed he's the crack started to show. Tensions started to rise, and when the dust settled, 2 of the team star players, Arrow and Ota, had left. Ota was picked up by Rio and went on to defeat OTW in Week 4, and Arrow would eventually join Botburgers, helping to turn that team around and beat his former teammates as well. From starting the absolute peak of their division to now standing at 2 and 3, One Trick Wonders was at risk of crumbling apart.
And crumble apart they did. Sinop would leave briefly in search of a new team before coming back by the end of the break period, and the team would get in what little practice they could. Morale was all over the place, and no one really knew the answer to their problems. The management and coaches slowly became less active, and the players were left to figure everything out for themselves. Under the leadership of their new captain Silverstar, One Trick Wonders was determined to pull something good out of the mess they'd found themselves in for the past month. The second half of the season started much like the first, and in fact the match results were the exact same as the first 5 weeks. One Trick Wonders managed to defeat Double Clap and Platchat, as well as lose to Vega Parrots, Rio Redemption, and Bot Burgers yet again. The team's morale shot up slightly after defeating DC without the need for a miracle reverse sweep, and reasserting themselves over the ever-struggling Platchat. The trouble arose when they stumbled against their final 3 opponents of the regular season, losing to Ada and Arrow yet again only through salt in the wounds, and by this point the team was resigned to being painfully mid-table. The best they could do was shake off the disappointment and take what time they did have to prepare for the playoffs. It was go time. Quarterfinals of the playoffs, single elimination. And One Trick Wonders were up against their age-old rivals and one of the only teams they had never lost to, Double Clap. They weren't too confident about their chances of making it to the grand finals, but the team had their hopes set on at least making the semifinals. After all, they defeated DC twice before, and they were going through what had appeared to be worse drama than even OTW. There's no way they could lose, right? Well, thanks to some stellar play by Double Clap and McCree in particular, as well as some questionable last-second decisions by One Trick's management, they had fallen, for the first time, to this opponent in 3-0 fashion. They looked flustered from the get-go, like they didn't know what the plan was, and ultimately, this led to a quick end to their Season 1 hopes. Just like their predecessors of the same brand name, the One Trick Wonders finished the playoffs dead last.
One Trick Wonders was an interesting case to witness. From staff's perspective, they were doing alright. Despite having a middling scoreline, they never caused a ruckus about any of the coaching or managerial problems they faced, and as a result, they were left to their own devices. It's unfortunate that no one was able to lift the team's spirits and whip them into shape, because it's undeniable the level of talent they had to display, even after some of their stars left for other teams. A world of potential, never truly unleashed, combined with a lack of communication on all fronts, left these poor players in something of a state of purgatory. They didn't learn from their own history of what did and didn't work throughout the first 5 weeks, and as a result they were doomed to repeat their success and failures both for the second half. I don't think anyone was expecting Double Clap to show up as hard as they did for the quarterfinals, but looking back, One Trick put themselves in the best possible position to lose that perfectly winnable match. Let this be a cautionary tale for teams of League Zero's future to communicate your problems with your teammates, with your management, and if necessary, with staff. You can't fix your problems when you refuse to address them head-on, especially when those problems involve the quality of leadership available. Going back through the players' recollections of the season, it's almost painful to hear what they went through, and astounding that no one caught on sooner. But I guess in the end, that's really the best way to describe OTW as a whole. A train wreck so thorough, you couldn't even tell what happened until it was already over. D+.